The Washington Post reports that China is currently in the process of modernizing and diversifying its fleet of nuclear warheads. The Defense Department now expects that China's arsenal will have quadrupled within the next decade. By 2030, the communist nation should have more than 1,000 nuclear warheads.
All right, this is the most clownish thing that I've ever seen in my life. It's honestly hilarious because let's highlight this point.
I didn't serve in the military. I never fought in any war. I admit that.
That's right. He's never been in the military. Well, I have, and I've got a lot of things to say about this.
Among them will be a certain number of hypersonic orbital missiles, which can circle the globe without being detected. And of course, that's not new technology, and China still will have fewer nuclear weapons than we do. I mean, enough to destroy the entire planet, so probably that's sufficient.
Now, I love how Matt Walsh opens this up by talking about China and freaking out and saying, oh, they're building nuclear weapons. And then under his breath is like, I mean, we have more nuclear weapons, but they have nuclear weapons. Oh my God. And trying to draw some sort of contrast between China building nuclear weapons and the United States trying to expand diversity within the armed forces. I don't see how those two things are related.
But we'll still have more. But the point, though, is that they seem focused on strengthening their position and becoming a more formidable global force, while we have, well, other priorities. In an interview with NPR, General David Berger announced that the Marine Corps will be overhauling and reinventing itself in order to institute more diversity.
Now, you'll see a lot of people on the left that criticize tokenizing diversity while the United States military commits war crimes around the world. That's the real problem. The problem is the war crimes, not the diversity. I would argue to say that in isolation, the diversity is a good thing for a litany of reasons. But at a basic moral standpoint, I don't want a military that's homophobic, transphobic, racist, sexist, you name it. All of those things have absolutely no business, because while Matt Walsh may talk about uniformity, what he doesn't understand is good order and discipline. And good order and disciplines means you don't let a bunch of white nationalists run the show harassing anybody else.
Even so, I'm skeptical that any military engagement has ever been won due to diversity of ethnic backgrounds among the victors.
But we also need to note the very obvious ahistorical nature of what he just said. Even in United States history, there's a long record of examples where diversity was specifically utilized in order to win particular conflicts. For example, during World War II, indigenous folks were actively recruited to be what were called code talkers. Through using indigenous languages, the United States military was able to operate without interference from spies because they couldn't understand the communication. That was a huge strategic victory that was only and exclusively the result of diversity.
Can anybody point me to an example from military history of a battle that was won because of diversity?
And then going back into the colonial wars, there were indigenous folks that were dragged into those conflicts that played a critical role in teaching colonizers how to use guerrilla warfare tactics. Without those tactics, the Revolutionary War would literally never have been won. So what an absolute clown are you to think that diversity isn't a good military strategy? It's an incredible military strategy. Are you kidding me? We also have to remember the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II that were one of the most effective fighters, and all of the soldiers that came from India to participate in World War II. I mean, seriously, the entire World War II coalition was a huge, diverse coalition that worked together to defeat the Nazis. The Nazis, to be clear, were very anti-diversity, and maybe I got my history wrong, but last time I checked, they lost.
Rather than diversity, militaries have always valued cohesiveness, uniformity. That's why units march in formation. That's why we call them units.
It's also absolutely hilarious that he talked about military formations. Look, I will tell you this plain and simple. I was in the military. I did those formations. You have to march around. It is literally never used in the rest of the entire military. You do basic training, you do your tech school, you'll march around there, and then it's pretty much just for show. Nobody's marching into formation into battles today. I don't know what century Matt Walsh thinks it is, but literally since the beginning of the United States as a country, marching troops into battle in formation is not a thing that has ever been an effective strategy since the 1400s.
Diversity and inclusion should never be the priority, but we should also keep in mind that all of these words, diversity, inclusion, equity, tolerance, etc., they are all code for get rid of white males. I mean, that's really what this is about.
And look, Matt Walsh, look, nobody's trying to replace white men, okay? Nobody, okay? People aren't trying to get rid of white men in the military. Nobody's doing that. Literally, nobody's doing that. I promise you. I was in the military literally up until this February, okay? And I can tell you this. There are plenty of white men in the military today, and they're not going anywhere. I mean, there's literally a whole crowd of white guys that make being in the military their entire identity. And I want to establish again, my issue with the military is all of the war crimes and violence that is committed around the world by the United States military. But when it comes to diversity, we have to understand that they're not even doing that for benevolent reasons. It's not because they really are just desperate to have more LGBTQ representation in the military. What they want is for more people to join the military. It turns out people are catching on to the fact that the United States military is, just sort of bombing people indiscriminately and responsible for the deaths of countless civilians around the world. And so people just aren't joining. And so if the United States military were to say, oh, we're going to be very racist now, we're going to be very sexist now, we're going to be very homophobic or transphobic, and we're not going to let any of these people in the military, then they would just not be able to recruit. They literally wouldn't be able to supply the troops. I mean, seriously, the rate of joining the military in the trans community is unbelievably high because it's one of the very few ways that trans folks can get access to healthcare. It's also incredibly high in Puerto Rico because a lot of Puerto Ricans who are denied a lot of the privileges that come with American citizenship find military service as a way to gain access to those privileges. The United States military literally operates on exploiting the most exploited within the country with the promise of, which should be guaranteed just by the nature of being a human being, and holding that over people's heads to say, hey, if you want healthcare, you got to join the military. You want education, you got to join the military. The United States military is a volunteer army of the poor, and that necessitates being inclusive, which is why I'll point to this part again.
I didn't serve in the military. I never fought in any war. I admit that.
That's right, Matt Walsh. You've never been in the military. You don't understand what it is. You don't understand what it's like. And once again, I have. I just think there's like a deep irony behind this, where Matt Walsh, who tries to put on this continuous front of masculinity, is sitting here talking about the military, when I'm the one that's actually been in the military, and I still have my makeup on from this morning because I wanted to feel cute. This is Ben Carollo with Rebel Headquarters. You can catch my show Galaxy Brain on the Young Turks Twitch channel every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to stay up to date with my content.